If we went over what is known as the fiscal cliff, we would accomplish $1.2 trillion in spending cuts and tax increases. But that's not seemingly what Moody's wants. They would rather us put some kind of plan together, it looks like sometime next year. What would that plan have to look like? What is it we need to do to appear to have our fiscal house in order?
Well, actually, the fiscal cliff has two parts, right? It has a tax part and then it has a spending part. The spending part, it will take place through sequestration, and that alone, that piece alone, is almost $1 trillion. I mean, the plan that if Moody wants anything like what S&P wanted, what they want to see is a credible, and that matters, the fact that it's credible, a credible plan that will probably want to reduce $4 trillion in debt over the course of the next 10 years.
Veronique, this is Ben Domenech. I wanted to ask you, based on looking at the real situation that we have with entitlements, though, how likely is an agreement like that really to come together? I mean, I look at this list of names, and I'm concerned about some of the Republicans on this list. I like Tom Coburn a lot, but Lamar Alexander, Mike Crapo, other Republicans on this list have all talked about being in favor of tax increases to cut some sort of deal. How feasible really is it to make a deal that will meet the kind of expectations that Moody's has here?
I don't buy the idea that there is the political will right now to actually come up with a comprehensive package that would actually put us on a sound fiscal footing. And more importantly, I mean, I'm always worried when I hear people saying, I'm willing to cave on tax increases. I mean, we don't need the alcoholics to get more tax revenue, because what they're going to do with it is that they're going to spend money. What we need to do is we need to actually let sequestration, the spending part, go through. That's better than nothing. And these guys need to hold on allowing taxes to go up. I mean, it's not good for the economy. And again, really, that's the last thing they need is more revenue.
Well, guys, I want to ask you about what we heard Speaker Boehner say there in that clip in his indictment of President Obama's failed leadership on this. I think it's fair to say we all have a deservedly negative impression of Congress and how they've been asking. But what of President Obama's role in this? I mean, if you look at just one example of what's going to happen, defense companies are saying that they are going to lay off hundreds of thousands of employees right before the election just because of the uncertainty of this fiscal cliff. Does that fall at the president's feet? I mean, that can't be all Congress. He has to steer this ship, right?
Well, he's only caring about one thing, which is his reelection prospects. And I think that this entire issue really holds the light up to that. We can see here that even though this could be very damaging to the U.S. economy, there's no will here with the Obama administration, and really, honestly, in Congress either, to make any drastic changes. People want to see where the power ends up.
But does that actually benefit the president? I mean, it would seem the president would benefit from action, not inaction.
It would if he was serious about actually cutting the deficit, as Ben pointed out.
Even if he's serious about getting reelected.
But there's been absolutely no, he has not ever laid out what he would want to cut. He's never said that there's something that we could actually do that would do deficit reduction. They've gotten away with without talking about it at all at this point.
You don't have to take Buck's word for it, or mine, or anyone at this table. Bob Woodward has a new book out called The Price of Politics, and he says, quote,
as he's wont to do,
increasingly clear that no one was running Washington during the debt limit debate. He even quotes Harry Reid's own chief of staff, who chewed out the President of the United States to his face for saying that he was baffled that the president had no plan B. This is unheard of. I mean, Ben, you know this from Capitol Hill. For a chief of staff to be chewing out the President of the United States for failure of leadership, that is extraordinary.
That is a wonderful illustration of the intransigence on this issue. But, Ben, I'm afraid you also laid out some of the intransigence in your question to Veronique. Now, listen, nobody at this table wants more taxes. Everyone thinks you give Washington more money, they learn how to spend it. But I also understand how you negotiate and get a deal done. And if deficit reduction is necessary, you can't go into a negotiating table and say, hey, guys, I'm going to tell you how this works, okay? Yeah. I want you Democrats to listen. We're going to get it all from spending. It's just not going to work.
Taxes are always...
You're just not going to get a deal.
Taxes are immediate, and deficit reduction is always a 20-year timeline.
The number one role that the president has played when it comes to our fiscal cliff and when it comes to the debt and deficit has been to pass a law that's going to put 157 million people's health care paid for by other taxpayers by 2020. He has been a primary driver of the kind of spending that you would have to address under any
Will,
deal.
you don't have
Which
to
means, from
convince
my
anybody
perspective,
here.
there is
Will,
no
John
deal to be
Boehner-
made with
John
him.
Boehner
There is
went-
no deal to be made with the
John
president.
Boehner went to the President of the United States last summer and said we could put together a deal. President Obama was going to make that deal until his political people came back and said, no, we're going to ask Republicans to spend $400 billion more. So, Veronique, my question to you is, when we are looking at assigning blame, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue has to take their fair share.
I agree. I mean, plus the president has been all along like a bumper sticker, like the balance approach, the balance approach. He's made it very clear that he's really not interested in spending cuts, but he wants taxes on the rich to go up. But I will say, I mean, while I understand kind of the how you negotiate and you have to be willing to consider supposedly tax increases, there are different ways to consider tax increases. You can say that you're going to make the base flatter, and close some loopholes as long as you also reduce marginal rates. But I think Republicans have to also be open-minded about spending cuts and be willing to put everything on the table, not just non-defense spending.
I think that's a good answer, Veronique. Unfortunately, I don't think Democrats, or for that matter, I'm not sure Republicans are interested in tax reform that you're describing. Thanks for being with us, Veronique.
Thank you for having me.
I think what's in the end, Veronique just described, and we all just described as the answer to this, is just only political win. It's winning in November because there's no reasonable negotiation to take place.
Get ready.